The crowded streets of Veridis Prime bustled with a mix of species from every corner of the known galaxy. Towering reptilians with jeweled scales, floating ethereal beings that whispered in frequencies too high for the human ear, and cybernetically enhanced warforms moved among the crowds. But to a human like Yarrick, none of that mattered. He was a mere delivery boy, an insignificant speck in a universe teeming with power and wealth. Yarrick had lived on Veridis Prime for 3 years, ever since his father had moved them here for work. It was a world of excess and splendor, where the rich and powerful dined in floating palaces and the destitute barely survived in the lower tiers. Yarrick had seen both sides, but it was the suffering he couldn't ignore. As he weaved through the streets, a shrill laugh echoed behind him. He didn't need to turn to know it was Vekari and his gang, alien elites from noble families who had made it their mission to torment him. They were young, powerful, and cruel. "Look at the little human," Vekari sneered. His golden eyes glowed with malice. "Rushing off to feed the vermin again?" Yarrick clenched his jaw but didn't answer. Words only gave them more ammunition. Vekari continued, his voice dripping with mockery. "It's pathetic. You waste your time on the dregs when you could be earning favor with the real powers." The dregs he spoke of were the outcasts of Veridis Prime, those who had lost everything, who were ignored by the elites and scorned by society. Yarrick had befriended a few of them, but there was one in particular he always sought out, an old, frail alien woman who sat at the edge of the market square, wrapped in tattered robes. No one knew her name. Most called her the Wretched. Yarrick approached her usual spot and, sure enough, she was there. He knelt and unwrapped a small bundle of food, nutrient-dense rolls he had saved from his own meager meals. "You shouldn't be here," she murmured, her voice raspy yet tinged with something unreadable. "I won't just stand by while someone starves," he replied. She studied him with piercing silver eyes before accepting the food. "You are different from the others." A roar of laughter erupted from behind him. Vekari and his gang had followed, watching with cruel amusement. "Do you think feeding a beggar makes you noble?" One of them jeered. Another sneered. "You're a joke, human. You should be groveling to the powerful, not squandering your time on trash." Yarrick ignored them, but the woman's gaze hardened. "Fools," she muttered under her breath, barely audible. Vekari stepped forward. "Tell me, human," he said, smirking. "Do you know why she's out here? Because she's nothing. The lowest of the low. You sully yourself by even looking at her." Yarrick turned to face them. "Maybe I'd rather be kind to nothing than be a cruel waste of space like you." The gang howled with laughter, and Vekari's smirk twisted into a scowl. Before he could respond, the woman let out a low chuckle, a sound so rich and knowing that it made them pause. "You think me nothing," she whispered, rising slowly to her feet. The air around her seemed to shift, the weight of something immense pressing down on them. Yarrick felt the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. The beggar woman's frail form straightened, the rags falling away, revealing intricate robes woven with shimmering energy. Her silver eyes burned with a fierce intensity. Gasps echoed through the crowd as murmurs spread like wildfire. Vekari stumbled backward, his golden eyes wide with horror. "It cannot be," he stammered. "You were exiled." The woman, no, the queen, lifted her chin. "And now I have returned." The market square fell silent. The weight of her presence bore down on them all. Yarrick swallowed hard. He had thought he was simply helping a beggar, but he had unknowingly extended kindness to the hidden queen of an entire empire. An empire that had just witnessed his act of mercy. And the elites who had mocked him? They were about to learn the true meaning of regret. The silence shattered as a distant hum filled the air. From above, sleek ships with royal insignias descended toward the market square, their hulls gleaming under Veridis Prime's artificial sun. The queen's people had arrived, and they were not pleased with the treatment of their sovereign. Vekari and his gang froze, their arrogance replaced with pure terror. They had insulted royalty, and the consequences would be severe. The queen turned to Yarrick, her expression unreadable. "You showed kindness without expecting reward. That is the mark of a true heart." Yarrick swallowed. "I just did what felt right." A slow smile spread across her face. And that is why you will be rewarded beyond your wildest dreams. The ships landed with a low hiss, and armored guards emerged, their weapons at the ready. Vekari fell to his knees, his confidence shattered. He had been so certain of his superiority, but now he was nothing more than a groveling wretch before the very woman he had scorned. Yerrick, on the other hand, stood tall. He had no idea what came next, but for the first time in his life, he felt like he truly belonged in the vast universe. The queen gestured toward one of her guards. "Take him to the palace. There is much to discuss." As Yerrick followed the regal entourage, he felt the eyes of the crowd upon him. He was no longer just a mere delivery boy. He was someone who had changed the course of an empire through a single act of kindness. And his journey was just beginning. The palace of the exiled queen was unlike anything Yerrick had ever seen. Towering spires of pure energy, walls that shimmered like liquid metal, and corridors that pulsed with an ethereal glow. The queen led him into a grand chamber, where members of her hidden court awaited her return. "You have done a great service," she told him. "And now, I offer you a choice. Return to your life, or stay and shape a new future." Yerrick hesitated. The universe had always seemed so vast, so unreachable. But now, he was part of something greater. "I'll stay," he said, determination in his voice. The queen nodded. "Then your story truly begins." And with that, Yerrick stepped into a destiny beyond anything he had ever imagined.